Good evening. Welcome to this virtual Village Hall. I'm Mayor Victoria Gearity, and I'm really pleased to be here with some terrific panelists this evening. It is not our typical Village Board meeting. This is not our usual night. Today we will have a focus on youth programming, I'll start with a little statement about where we are right now in this community and in this country, and then what we're trying to accomplish tonight and where we hope this can go. In the last few weeks, the country has had a level of engagement that we have not seen in my lifetime, I don't believe, where people are calling for some serious changes in an effort to dismantle institutional racism. And it's such a very, very big challenge. And there are so many components to figuring out how to do that, that it can be a little bit overwhelming. And so what we're trying to do tonight as a village government is identify where are the areas where we can affect change? How can we make a difference in our community, be an example for other communities? And in this case, we're talking about youth programming. So any change that we're able to make for Ossining youth has an impact for their entire lives and how they carry themselves with the world. So I'm very, very pleased to sort of update everybody on where we are in village government and how things seem to be just coming together in a nice, the timing is coalescing really well. Considering all that is going on. The village for a while now has been preparing to have a youth bureau, to begin a youth bureau, and we have gotten to a stage where it's been approved by the county, and we're going to get some insights from our staff in a little while to give us an overview on where we are with the youth bureau. But it doesn't mean we don't have to wait to start the programming for the Youth Bureau. And we're very pleased that some of our community partners led by the Open Door and Alice Joslow have a grant for community programming this summer. And so we have that project that's underway, figuring it out. We're at the beginning of being able to figure that out as the guidelines are changing every day coming from the governor. We've got a lot to figure out on that front. And we're normally we'd get to this stage and we'd say, okay, so what kind of programs do Ossining youth not want? What kind of programs do Ossining youth want? How can we really address the needs of Ossining youth today? Let's reach out to some people in the community and find out what we should be doing, or maybe we think we already know what everybody needs. Here we are with these youth-driven gatherings that have been happening at the waterfront. And that's who some of our special guests are this evening. Jalay Knowles and Boozang-Hill are with us. Hi there. We are so pleased to have them here with us. In a moment, I'm going to ask them to give us a recap and reflections on the conversations that they invited to have happen at our waterfront and what they're hearing from people and what they think Ossining is hungry for and is ready for and is thinking about from a youth perspective. Most of us in the village staff here, I'm looking at us, I think Manny, most of us are not identified as youth anymore at the moment. So we're really grateful to have these young women who are from Ossining, raised in Ossining, and are still a part of our community here to help us drive this conversation in a way so that any programming that we undertake right now can be beneficial for where we are right now, and then can maybe help inform where we go forward with the Youth Bureau and what can be guiding principles of the Youth Bureau. And the village is in a position where we have some resources to bring to really affect that change in a way that I think speaks to a much larger concern and goal that we have in our community and in our nation. And so with that, there are a couple of our village board members. They're stuck in some work activities, so they're going to be joining us late, but I see that we have Trustee Levin and Trustee Quesada here. Do either of you want to say anything before I throw it to Jalay? Are you good? Okay, it looks like Rika's frozen, so I'm just going to say. Rika, I'm not hearing you. I know that you're coming from a remote location, so I think you might have a weak signal. Is anybody else hearing? Can anybody else hear Rika? Not clearly, right? Okay, Rika, we're not able to really hear you. I need to give, Rika, I'm not able to really hear you, and I realize that I want to give a little bit more direction to the participants. Rika, I can hear that you're saying something, but I can't understand a word of it. So unfortunately, I'm just gonna, before I pass it over to Jalay, I'm taking a look here at our attendees. Thank you to everyone who is tuning in tonight. And I'll just give a little overview on what to expect from the structure of tonight's agenda. I'm doing the welcome right now, and I'm gonna throw it to Jalay and to Catherine to give us their recap and reflections on the sessions that they had at the waterfront and any other conversations that you've been having with young people in our community. And then we're going to get an overview from staff, expanding on what I was mentioning about the plans that we have in place for a youth bureau and for summer programming for youth that can be the resources that we're talking about to move forward with. And at any time, if somebody wants to submit a question into the Q&A, please submit a written question into the Q&A, and we can then incorporate your questions, your thoughts. That will help us in our conversation about what are our goals and what are potential programs that can help achieve those goals. And that's going to provide the real meat and potatoes for our conversation tonight. So I hope that gives everybody enough of an idea of what to expect for what's next. And I'm really excited to hear from you, Jalay and Catherine. Thank you so much for being with us this evening.
Thank you for having us. Again, my name is Jalay Knowles. As a 22-year-old Black woman, I have faced challenges against racism a majority of my life. Some direct, some subtle, but all hurts the same. Over the years, technology has advanced, so now we can visually see racism in action. We can see how the Black community has been treated by people in this country. Aren't we citizens too? I have had family and friends who have fought for this country just to come back and be treated less than a hero, less than a human. When the video of George Floyd getting murdered surfaced, I watched that man die on my screen. The worst part of it is I am desensitized to this because this has been going on in my country for centuries. But something about this murder was different. On top of that, within the last month and some change, we've had to deal with the murders of both Ahmaud Arbery and Breonna Taylor. People have been chanting and writing, say their name. I knew and I still know that sadly, Jalay Knowles can be the name people may eventually have to say. My life can be taken in an instant because of the color of my skin. That has got to change, and we're making that change happen. I was asked why I was so adamant about the movement. The reason is because it directly affects the Black community. We have been suffering. We are tired. We need help. The stress of not knowing how a police officer will respond to my presence has worn on me. Friends of mine have been mistreated at the hands of cops, and they have been sent to jail for small charges. As a Black community, when we get together, there is a large police presence, whereas if it was on the other side of town, the cops aren't as patrol as much. I am not a threat. However, people perceive me as such because of the color of my skin and my size. I have seen women hold their purse a little closer to their bodies when I am near. This all adds up to the stress that we collectively feel. Friday, May 29th, I told my mom I wanted to hold a forum on Sunday for people to discuss how they felt. I told her I wanted to provide a physical platform for people to be heard. I started to really think about it, where it would be, who will come, what type of emotions do all people have. Then I got word that Saturday there was going to be people gathering at the Ossining waterfront to protest. As a lifelong Ossining resident, I felt an obligation to attend. I told my mom I was going and that maybe today is the day people will express how they feel. I showed up with a small amp and a microphone I got from Walmart years ago. I just so happened to stumble upon Ossining Chief of Police, Kevin Sylvester, who I already knew and respected. He asked me, "So what's going on? What's the plan?" My initial response was, "Chief, I'm not even sure." After a few minutes passed, more people showed up and asked me what the plan was, how this was going to be executed. What are we going to do? Then I hopped on the stage, plugged in the amp, and tried to gather people's attention. Decided to hold the forum I wanted on Saturday. Gave people a safe space to express their emotions. There were many speakers with many different feelings. The energy was serious, at the same time hopeful. After this event, people came up to me and asked, "When's the next one?" I responded with, "Tomorrow." Sunday's event was a forum to begin to devise a plan of action moving forward. The Ossining waterfront is beautiful, spacious, and provides a level of comfort to discuss such a difficult topic like racism. More people came, more voices heard, more people determined to make a change. There were many great ideas, but the one that continued to come up was education reform in all realms. I believe that there are four main components to creating lasting change. They are to educate, listen, advocate, and create allyship. Education was first for a reason. It is the most powerful tool, and when utilized correctly, can make some monumental changes. Education programs in and out of school and adjustments to current curricula so that children are taught from a young age how to be actively anti-racist is one way I see that we can recreate this lasting change. For those who don't know, I work at Roosevelt Elementary School, which is in the Austin School District. I absolutely love my job there, and those kids mean the world to me. I can see myself having a career at Roosevelt after I complete my master's in counseling. These kids are my everything. They are confused, they are sad, they are hurting. They already had their own individual challenges. Then COVID hit, and now this. Don't get it twisted. We've been in a racial war for centuries, but right now we are truly on the front lines again. They are seeing everything. They have access to the world in the palm of their hands. I want the next thing they see on their phones is a positive sign for change, something that will make them feel hopeful, that their future can be safe and can be great. Everyone wants to be heard and accepted. It is in our nature to want that. The second component, to listen, is more complex than people would think. Being active listeners is very important because information can go in one ear and out the other. Being active, being attentive, being empathetic to who is speaking. I try to remind people that they are listening, I try to remind people that we're listening to try to put themselves in our shoes, try to truly grasp what type of stress that we go through on a daily basis. People have to listen to get different perspectives. I myself have to listen to get different perspectives. I need to hear what Chief Sylvester has to say. I need to hear what Mayor Gearity has to say. I need to hear what the NAACP has to say. We all need to listen. The third component, I believe, can be the most challenging one, advocate. To be an advocate, to speak up for what's right takes true courage. Revisiting our first component, education, we have to learn ways to speak up against racism. This conversation is uncomfortable, and I can empathize with that. But my community has been uncomfortable for 400 years. We got to find the courage and the confidence to start to and continue the conversation. Finally, we need allyship, and for people to help build us up instead of tear us down. Not one group alone can solve this systemic issue. Not one group can handle our country's racial crisis. We must work with one another. We must be a unit. We must work as a team to push through. I used to be a 3-sport athlete at Ossining High School. For our team to prosper, we had to work in unison in order to come out victorious. This is the same. We must do this together. Now is our time. An opportunity to put our words into actions. We have had these forums and generated such amazing ideas. Now we have to take the next step. Now our challenge is to dismantle the systems that have been put in place to oppress us. This momentum is real. There are so many people that are stepping up to the challenge and continuing the conversation. We are meeting now to develop a plan moving forward. This movement can take off right here, right now. My message to you all today is all voices are valuable. Find the confidence within yourself to use your voice. Start small. Start within your own family, then expand from there. We can do this. We will do this, but we must work together to begin the process of dismantling racism. Thank you for your time and providing a safe platform for me to speak and a safe platform for us to discuss this topic. And Catherine, sorry, it took too long, but Catherine, anything else?
You're fine. You're fine. You're fine. You did great. Thank you, Jalay. Catherine, please, do you have anything that you want to share about the last week and a half or anything more broadly?
This last week and a half, obviously, we've seen a tremendous amount of community coming together. I think the biggest, sorry, I'm trying to gather my thoughts. My paper was loading. We're not looking to humiliate our opponents. Instead, we're looking to come together in order to educate ourselves and others. It's important that in order to first take down this deeply rooted idea of race and racism, systematic and institutional both, we need to first understand how the unheard felt. everyone coming together, obviously, that we all want the same thing. We all want education. We all want to see how we can support each other, how our authorities can support us, how our educators can support us, how we can support each other. Again, Jalay said it all. So that was just my 2 cents.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Catherine, and thank you, Jalay. In a moment, I'm going to ask Karen DeTore and any of our staff to help give us a little more understanding on where we are with the programming, but I've been taking a quick peek at some of the questions, and Karen, have you checked out the Q&A? Because there's some questions about the Youth Bureau and you know, how that process is going to unfold. Maybe you could offer some insights. I'm going to just take the question about police, and I'm going to address it this way. The Ossining Police Department has been, as you heard Jalay reference, her interaction and her communication with the chief as this was all getting underway, have been tremendous partners throughout this moment. And I spent a good part of this morning on a call with mayors throughout New York State, and was just, again, reminded of how very fortunate we are to have the law enforcement team that we do in Ossining and the community relations that we do. Nothing's perfect, but we are in a very good place in Ossining in this moment especially. There are a lot of community partners that the village works with. In fact, Monday afternoon, for the last couple of months now, there's been a weekly Zoom, and it's all the community partners that really have concern and programming it for Ossining families and youth. And obviously that includes the schools and the library. And in fact, the village has worked closely with the library for the last few years on a youth after school program for middle school students. And the Open Door has been a tremendous partner, and Alice Joslow, through her work in the Open Door that I know Karen will talk more about, applied for a grant that is involved in this summer youth programming. That is one of the opportunities we have that I know we're going to talk about some more tonight. So for this evening's conversation, we wanted to focus on just what are we talking about that the village government, particularly led through our recreation department, which is overseen by our village manager, how we can influence what that programming is going to look like, and how that can be guided by the insights that we get, what we're hearing from Ossining's young adults and young people. There are a lot of high school students and recent graduates that have been part of this conversation, and so we're really grateful to have their input in that. So when somebody said, why no police representation, we are fortunately very, very have an excellent and close relationship with our police chief and police department. And so their absence from this particular Zoom is not a reflection of anything other than we're just focusing on the programming that is driven through the recreation department and ultimately will be through the Youth Bureau. And so we have questions coming in, but I'm gonna ask Karen DeTore and any staff she wants to bring in to give us an overview on all this that I've been referencing, our Youth Bureau, summer programming, and where we are. And of course, it's changing moment by moment, thanks to the governor and all that's going on with COVID. But please, Karen DeTore, welcome.
Thank you. Jalay and Catherine, thank you so much for being here tonight. It's kind of hot, so I guess maybe this is giving us a little bit of break from the waterfront tonight, but we've been enjoying what you've started, the dialogue that you started, and it's so ironic that as we're sitting here trying to think of youth leadership opportunities, our youth are out there leading. I'm not sure that we have as much to teach as we think we do. So you guys are doing a great job, and you're doing it so well with so many really good responses from such a tragedy. We are looking at starting a youth program. It'll be the first youth program, Youth Bureau rather, that has been established in the county in over 20 years. We are working on that now. We're working with the county. The county just passed a resolution allowing us to do this, and we're hoping, we had anticipated trying to get this together over the summer. The pandemic has put a little crimp in the works, but we are working with this and working closely with Bill Garrison, our Superintendent of Recreation and Parks. Youth Bureau, we are going to be looking for a Youth Bureau Director. We will be posting for that job. I will keep you posted as to when we are posting for that job, and we'll probably be hiring an assistant program administrator too for this this particular for the Youth Bureau. The real function of the Youth Bureau is to be youth-led. It is to provide for the social and emotional well-being of youth. It is to provide for opportunities for youth, job training, a whole wealth of different things that can provide the kids in our community with deeper perspective, deeper understanding, more sense of themselves, and give them the support that they need as a community, as a village, to be able to thrive and be successful. And we've always been behind that, so we're really, really glad to be able to do this. One of the things that we're going to be doing too, because we were able to get some grant funding through Open Door that we can use this summer. Originally, we were going to use it to augment our youth bureau, but since we're a little delayed in getting that started, we want to be able to spend that. We're going to be looking at launching a 6-week program on youth leadership training. And we're going to have 2 cohorts of middle schoolers and 1 cohort of middle schoolers rather than 1 of high school students. As we're working on dealing with the virus and where we're going to be in mid-July, we're sort of looking how that's going to look. Hopefully we'll be able to do some of those leadership trainings in person, but this is really something that can be directed and shaped by the vision and the plans that you are putting out there now, and to the degree that you want to be involved in what this program looks like and how we're working it, we really want your input, because it needs to be youth driven, as does the Youth Bureau. And we will have, not only will we have staff positions for the Youth Bureau, we're also going to have board positions, we're going to have youth advisory positions. So there's really a lot of opportunity for people to get involved. And again, you've taken the lead, you're leading. So I think the best we can do is really give you an opportunity to take that experience and make sure you can communicate that to your peers, to younger kids, as well as to older people as well, who may need a little bit of leadership and guidance themselves. So whatever we can do to support that. And I just want to ask Bill, who I think is still here, I see his name, to add anything. He's working on some of the logistics right now as we speak, and recently got some updates on things we might be able to do this summer, given the pandemic.
Yeah, well, thank you, Karen, and good evening, everyone. You know, I think one of the things that we're looking to do this summer is we want to have a program that is going to evolve and teach them how to have a voice and how to be heard. And I think there are so many different issues going on with youth, and this is an extremely important one. And having input from different people is good about it. We are looking forward to getting this going in mid-July. It's something that we can do where we're going to have in-person, in small groups, social distancing. But right now we find ourselves coming into mid-July would be the time we do this. We're on a 6-week program, and we want to get 30 kids or more involved in this. And what's great about this is that we have to have a youth council for our youth bureau. And the youth council is going to inform us on what we should be doing, not only with recreation programs. Too many times I think what happens is that we as adults think we know what the kids need and what they want. And we are wrong 99% of the time. So we need to start listening to the youth and hearing what they want and try to make happen what we can, so that they will feel more heard and they will feel that they're a better part of the community. So we're real excited about this, and looking forward to getting this youth leadership program going this summer and the youth bureau going in the fall.
Great, thank you, Bill. I just want to really add one thing. We have so many groups in Ossining devoted to youth. We have so many groups devoted to the community. The Youth Bureau is a conduit to coalesce those groups, to bring resources. It's a funding mechanism. A big part of what a Youth Bureau do is enables grant funding that wouldn't ordinarily be available. So I just want to make sure that this doesn't take the place of other things that are going on, but it adds some momentum and some fuel to that. And through the Youth Bureau, you're able to partner with other nonprofits that are doing similar work for youth and the community. And I don't want to take too much time, but Alice Jasso is on this. She's one of the attendees right now, and I just want to let her say a couple of things about the summer program, and then we will turn it over to you guys because people have questions really for Jalay and Catherine. I'm sure not so much for me or any of us. So anyway, Alice, or Jamie, can you give Alice the ability to speak?
She's been added as a panelist for now.
Okay.
Am I able, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Alice.
Oh,
Welcome,
hey,
Alice.
okay. Hey, Jalay, nice to see you again. And Catherine, kudos to both of you. You exemplify what we're looking for in youth leaders, right? And in terms of this program that we're designing with Bill and Karen and myself and Susie Zavarello, who's the teen librarian at the Ossining Public Library, the original focus of the grant was prevention, right? It's a grant that's from the government agency SAMHSA, and it's focused on prevention. But prevention is really positive youth development. And positive youth development is watching young people like you take the leadership role and become role models to all the youth in our community of how you can really have a positive impact. So I know that we want to get to other issues, but I really want to say to both of you is that we would like you to help us plan this program, if you're willing, and be involved with it going forward. Is that a possibility, perhaps?
Absolutely, absolutely.
I see a thumbs up from Jalay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, I realized I was still mute. Yep.
Okay, it's hard for me because I'm on my computer. I mean, I'm on my phone. I can't get on this call through my computer right now. So in any case, everyone, I don't know how to get in touch with you, but clearly someone does. So we'll get to you. And our hope is that both of these groups of middle schoolers and high schoolers will become the youth boards for the Youth Bureau, right? Because as we plan programming for youth, we need the youth voice. It needs to be youth driven and adult guided. We don't want it to be another example of adultism where we plan for youth without their input. So thank you for letting me be a part of that, and thank you and all your other peers who are involved in these very powerful and inspiring protests. And there's such a cause for optimism in our community. And I'm so grateful to you guys for what you have sparked in our community in the past few weeks. You can mute me now.
Thank you, Alice. And I think your sentiments are definitely reflected by the whole community. And we're so grateful that Jalay and Catherine are here. And Jalay and Catherine, you're only two people, and we're asking you to represent an entire generation of people. So good luck. I don't know if you can see these questions that we have here, but we have several that are accumulating now that are getting sort of into the meat of what we wanted to talk about, which is our goals for youth programming and then how might we achieve that. And so why don't I throw you one of the I'll share one of the ones that is specific, but if you want to just take it to a place of what were the goals and hopes that you were hearing from young people or yourselves during these recent conversations? But this is about, thank you, Ginny, for this one. Are there any youth programming ideas that came out of the waterfront and other community conversations? Either things that would be good additions or things that aren't helpful that we should be consider discontinuing. So go ahead, unmute yourselves. Yeah, I'm going to mute myself now. You go ahead.
So coming from the waterfront discussions, there have been 3 umbrella ideas that have been the main focus and main concerns of members of our community. And the 3 of them are education in schools, at home and within the community, and by in community, I mean like local government and local authorities. So I'll start there. I think in Ossining, we have been very lucky with our police department, especially with all of the support that they give us. They are so caring. They are members of our community. They understand what it's like to be here. They understand what it's like to grow up here, and how our community really interacts with each other. So particularly the questions that have been asked were more, how can we in the public ensure that the hiring process for Ossining Police Department is within our best interests? There was the discussion of an implicit bias program, and the public really wants to know, how is that being handled? How is the training being handled? If there are exams that they have to take to determine implicit bias, how is that being handled? How is public respect and responsibility, how is that really being taken into consideration? So a lot of people would love to have an open forum with the police department, similar to what we used to have over the summers, where it would be a picnic or a barbecue with the police and with educators. I think instead of just having the casual setting, I think people really do want to understand what's going on in the minds of the police chief and going on in the minds of our police officers, so that there can be a stage for mutual respect. Going on to at home, education begins at home. Mannerisms are learned at home, ideas are learned at home. And so there has been a call to really involve the education of parents as well as the students. There was a call for being an ally, understanding what it means to be an ally, becoming more socially aware so that they can teach themselves, teach their kids, teach other family members. And so it's not just an Ossining thing. Teaching family members can go globally. Globalization is a really big thing when it comes to dismantling an institutional racism. Then here comes the big one, which is in-school education. So we had a few students speak from the high school's Student Equity Committee. And a big thing that has been brought up multiple times was mandating the race discussion classes. So the SUNY race classes, the SUNY Black experience classes, things like that. People want others to know that there is a difference between equity and equality. And the only way to do that is to start teaching that in the word study very early on. That goes to Park School, honestly. So there was a call to make sure that our educators have a support system so they can find ways to bring in new classes that aren't just Black communities within America. They want to bring in race and ethnicities, talk about Middle East. They want to talk about how the slave trade worked, and not just the way that we learned it in the textbook. They want to know the actual details. They don't want it to be Eurocentric anymore. They want it to be explicit. That's the thing. The new generation wants to be exposed to all of these things. So again, with those three umbrellas, it really comes down to having open communication, having a lot of open forums that everyone is invited to and everyone is able to contribute to and able to learn, whether it's things that they didn't know that they wanted to learn or things that they thought that they knew. It's about relearning in order to understand how deeply rooted this issue is, in order to, again, dismantle the big issue that is racism in our society.
And sorry, just to piggyback real quick off of one thing that Catherine did say, it was because, again, we are a community, we are a unit, we are a team. You know, I like to use team a lot just because due to my sports background. But the SUNY Racism, Classism, Sexism course is phenomenal. And I don't remember if it was brought up by someone who actually went up and spoke, or someone came up to speak to me or Catherine, but they were saying, as a community, this can be and should be offered as a program for members of our community. And we can gear it, we can shift it, like we can gear it to certain ages, and like either for for young kids or our elders. It can go in any shape and form. And I'm sorry, I just wanted to piggyback off of that one because I think that is I think that can make a big just community difference because again, like I'm out of high school, you know what I mean? So there's people that have been out of school for years that still may need this type of education.
Thank you. Thank you for, and I'm gonna rephrase what I'm hearing from you because I want to make sure that when we leave here today, and this being recorded for anybody who, if you wanted to make sure you could share this with someone in the future, this is going to be up on the Village YouTube channel. Usually we get it up within a day, so you can watch it, you know, tell people go to minute 27 and this is what I said that you really need to hear. Chief Sylvester, there was a lot of questions about police, and that is one of the other areas where village government has a very important role to play when it comes to what are our policies and practices, and what does our contract look like, and what is the training that's in place, and what more training could there be, and as far as having an open forum, I'm sure that the chief has probably already heard about it. He's pretty connected to things. I didn't see him on the attendee list, but somebody's probably already texted him. It wasn't me this time, but somebody's probably already texted him and say that if their people are calling for an open forum, they have a lot of questions they want to better understand. And I have been at open public forums back in the real world where we all sat in a room together, and the chief loves being able to hear from people and address those questions. So I won't speak for him, but I will say I'm predisposed to thinking that he would be very receptive to that kind of conversation to have. And I know that the school district has, in fact, last night they had a forum already where they were talking about where we are, and they are very much open to adapting their education. And as has been noted, there are some terrific programs that exist. And I'll just tell you, I have a child in middle school right now who's learning about the Middle Passage, and it's pretty graphic. It's pretty detailed. I don't remember learning as much detail about what was happening on slave ships a few years ago when I was in middle school as they are learning now. It's definitely the education that kids are getting today it's evolving to be somewhat more representative of the reality of how our country was founded. Jalay, I really love what you said about we are a community, we are a team, and what we have an opportunity to do here is the education that is beyond what's in the classroom. As has been said many times, you are two exemplary, examples of the youth leadership that we have here in Ossining right now, and how can we see more of that? And I want to I'll bring in another question, and thank you to everybody who's been typing in your questions. I think we've been trying to answer most of them as part of our conversation. This one's from Meadows. Will or can the Youth Bureau be specifically identified and focused as an anti-racism organization? Or is the idea to have it even more general with some anti-racism programming? Have it be more general. So that's a good question. I think that is part of what we're trying to figure out today, is how can the conversation we're having right now inform the Youth Bureau going forward. And I just want to say, just as a note to how much we value the Youth Bureau and the importance of it. We spent weeks and weeks and weeks right after the coronavirus hit looking at our budget and figuring out what were we not going to pay for this year. And we always knew we were going to continue to fund the Youth Bureau, even when we were postponing all kinds of capital projects. So it's definitely something that this board was valuing when we led it and when we started making cuts. So we recognize the importance of it. Now, exactly how we approach the programming or the goals and the principles of the Youth Bureau, I think that can be informed with where we are right now. Karen, you're looking at your screen. Is that for something else? Did you want to comment on that? No, you're you're on mute. I have no idea what you're saying, Karen.
I'm just, I was reading some of the questions and I can't really see. So I apologize for that. I'm not trying to be weird. So anyway.
So do you want to speak to the question about is the Youth Bureau an anti-racism?
No.
How can we frame it as
So
informing our programming?
A youth bureau has a very definitive goal. It's really a quasi-governmental organization that's set up to facilitate youth programming, and it can be across a wide range of different topics. We're not suggesting that the Youth Bureau becomes something very, very specific. The Youth Bureau will ultimately be somewhat general. However, what we did, the real issue with the Youth Bureau, and I think it's really important because there's a lot of things going on here, and there's a lot of things we have to do as a community, and Youth Bureau is just one tiny segment of that. Important segment, a valuable segment, but really just one segment. So as far as becoming, certainly anything we do should be anti-racism. But how we evolve the Youth Bureau and Youth Bureau programming will be dictated by the Youth Council, by the programming, by funds available. There's a lot of things that will go into that. I think that what we want to make sure, and I'm extending this to people who are attending this virtually as well. The Youth Bureau will be getting input from a lot of different sources. Like, we want to make this, you know, again, the Youth Bureau will thrive if it has as much community input as possible. It's a tool. It's one more tool in our tool chest. And an important tool, but just one more tool in a tool chest that we're going to have that's going to need to be vast and multifaceted and really nimble. And thankfully, we have so many good people in this community and good organizations to help facilitate this. But most importantly, this conversation really isn't as much about the Youth Bureau as much as it is about us hearing from you guys, letting other people hear who haven't been able to make it out to some of these events for various reasons. So I really want to make sure that in the spirit, it's about the conversation that you started that obviously has implications for anything we could do going forward. Within village government, the police force, what we're doing on youth programming, but more importantly for you to express what you're doing, where you see it going, and how that can manifest itself through a variety of different ways.
So, you know, Alice talked about a desire to have some of these youth leaders that are already emerging and presenting themselves to have a formal role within the Youth Bureau as it becomes established. And we have a question along similar lines asking how, let's just make sure I ask the question properly. Thank you, Althema. How do you become involved in assisting with the Youth Bureau? And the Youth Bureau itself, we're having a little bit of a lag time, like Karen referenced earlier in the meeting. We thought we'd be a little further along on the Youth Bureau being formalized than we are, and things got slowed down with the coronavirus, which is why we're just talking right now about youth programming for youth leadership programming for this summer. While I'm looking at the questions, I'll address one of the other ones here. And while I'm doing that, Jalay and Catherine, as soon as I stop talking, you can either interrupt me, or I also have somebody else who's joined us that wanted to comment on something, which we would welcome. Question about who oversees the police review board, which is the civilian police complaint review board. And since that did come up with you know, questions about the police and training and oversight, Ossining is one of the few communities that has a civilian police complaint review board. We were in need of some new members, and we just appointed 3 new members, and they were about to meet when the whole world shut down a couple of months ago. And last week, I was in touch with one of the remaining members who had been on from before, and before there was a big turnover, about them scheduling another meeting. And it gave me also an opportunity to read our village code about the Civilian Police Complaint Review Board with fresh eyes, and the board and I have been exchanging some emails on how can we support the work of the Civilian Police Complaint Review Board, make it more accessible to the community, let the community know that it's there, and also have a better understanding for them of what their role can and should be in helping to strengthen community and police relations. And it's a board that's made up of 5 civilians and 2 police officers with a couple of alternates. And we can go into that more on another occasion. It sounds like we're going to have more conversations about law enforcement. So I'd like to get back to talking about youth programming. And I guess I'm not seeing Jalay or Catherine raising your, like, trying to get my attention and saying you have something you desperately want to say. So I'm going to invite Trustee Lopez, who wanted to say a few words. And if any of the, Trustee Quesada, Trustee Levin's in kind of a weird space and it's tough to hear her, but Trustee Quesada, you I know wanted to say something at some point as well. So perhaps you'll want to chime in after Omar. Trustee Lopez.
Thank you, Mayor Gearity. Hello to everyone, in particular to Jalay and Catherine. Welcome, because I'm so grateful to be with you here today. This is a super tough time for our community and our country. And one of the things that we have marveled at is the way that the youth in our community, you two being prime leaders of that age group, really leading the charge in terms of asking the question, so now what? What do we do in response to all of this? Because there is certainly an inciting incident that we have here with the murder of George Floyd, whose name we must always say, and we must always remember what it is that brought us here, that heinous act that we all decry. And what that has created is an environment where a lot of folks as individuals, organizations, and governments are reflecting on what can we do to be better in terms of recognizing our own biases, dismantling racism, and understanding that we are not yet where we want to be, living in a society where we started with 400 years of slavery and have now the after effects of Jim Crow and everything else. And so what do we do now, recognizing that we have this context and that we have these real issues when it comes to police brutality? So there are some specific things, we've mentioned them already with the Civilian Complaint Review Board. And here in Ossining, which is a really special community, we have our chief, Kevin Sylvester, that I'm really proud has done a lot to be out in the community and tried to build a lot of the relationships, both individually and with the force. And yet we know that there is more work to do in making the police force representative of our community in terms of the racial and ethnic makeup of the officers who serve there, in terms of wanting to make the process as transparent as possible when an officer does something that isn't right, and we want to hold folks accountable. At the same time, we recognize that maybe as a society, the way that we think about policing needs to change so that we don't ask so much of the police to them not just be law enforcement officials, but also social workers and mediators and everything else. It's a huge job that we ask of our police officers, and we want to support them and set them up for success. And so there's also conversation about rethinking what are ways that we can set our police officers up for success and ensure that our community is getting the support that it needs. So in terms of the biggest topic that we're talking about here today, how to dismantle racism. First, I really am just so proud of having youth in our community that are willing to take on a topic as meaningful and difficult as that, because it involves policy, it involves introspection, difficult conversations, and that happens at this level, at the local level. And so we're taking the work that has happened in the rallies and in the marches that we've seen over the course of the last couple of weeks, and we're saying, let's build something that is sustainable. The Youth Bureau is certainly one vehicle for us to do that through, but it's not exclusive to that. You mentioned having community training almost, or conversations, Jalay, about race. And I think that that's a wonderful, beautiful thing, because part of this has to do with education. If you're able to do some of the difficult, heavy lifting of reflecting on the way that your own identity markers, both visible and invisible, impact your life, the privileges that they afford you, the challenges that you may face, and the beauty that is found within a lot of those identity markers, finding space for us to celebrate it. You take now, it's Pride Month, and so we lift up our LGBT plus siblings here in the community, and all of that came from folks fighting for, wanting to be recognized, seeing their whole person, their humanity. And so that is where we are, doing the difficult work of figuring out what is next. And I'm really proud to do that work by your side. I will work as hard as I can to support you in that work. So thank you.
Thank you, Omar. I don't think I'm gonna I'm gonna be able to cover half of the stuff that you said, as always. So I appreciate that. Jalay, Catherine, I really want to thank you guys and everybody that was actually involved in these conversations. And one of the things that it always that I'm always passionate being in village government is one of the things. And whenever we do something to our level, I always try to encourage our staff to to more information, more communication to our community, because education is a basic tool. Is something that is essential. Is that one of the things that Catherine mentioned? Many of the things that you mentioned, Catherine, but one of the things that that kind of stick with me was education at home, and a lot of the stuff that actually you're correct, 100%. Parents, I'm a parent. I have 3 kids myself, and I think it's essential for us as a parents, as a grandparents, as a to reflect in how do we educate our kids. We cannot depend on somebody else teaching our kids the values as simple as say good morning, say hi, how are we doing? I know simple little details that I always encourage my kids to do when they go to someone's house, or if they see someone in the street, say hi. That's essential. Racism, is incredible because I didn't grow up in this country. I came here when I was 15. But when someone, I remember when I first came to this country was, so where are you from? I said, well, from Ecuador. It's like, where is that? I said, it's South America. It's literally America. And he's like, no, that's not America. I said, yes, it is. It's South America, yes, but it's part of the whole continent. And a lot of people they still don't understand, when they refer to people that were born in the United States of America, they refer to, oh, they're from America. So it starts with education and how do we break that barrier? So I'm definitely in support of a lot of the programs that we can help as a government in these type of situations. It's incredible to see a couple of weeks before that, we were talking about this pandemic. And this has been a pandemic that has been in our country for many, many years. And you're right, it's time for us to break that pattern and actually make ourselves better in every single way that we can do, and not just by doing programs in here. And I think education to me is the foundation of a lot of the problems that we have right now in our country and in our world as well. So I thank you for all the work that you guys are going to be doing, that you have been doing. And I think our community thanks for the leadership that you have shown through these past couple of weeks. So thank you very much for all the hard work that you guys have done.
So Jalay and Catherine, if I don't call on you, you're welcome to just unmute yourselves and tell me that you have something to say or comment on at any time. Otherwise, I'm going to go back and look at more Q&A. So I'll pause and let people unmute themselves if they need to. Okay. So thank you to, we've been trying to get through some of the questions that have been here. We've gotten through most of them. Okay, so there's been a request for there to be contact information of participants shared. So that's a little bit tricky. I don't want to give people's personal contact information, but I know that I first reached out to Jalay through Facebook Messenger when I saw her. Somebody was streaming a live feed. Thank you, Dana Levenberg, that first night. And I just reached out through Facebook Messenger. And I don't know Jalay except for that basketball player I used to cheer for on the side of the court in the high school. So it was nice to see her in this role. And I've really enjoyed having the exchange that we've had over the last week and a half that brought us here to this evening. Jalay, you unmuted yourself, so I'll stop talking. What's up? What were you going to say?
Well, I mean, I just wanted to say that, yeah, like the communication between us I just am very grateful. And that's another thing that we talking about is just open communication. Because if you're able to have this open communication, it's more direct and more effective. And also, I just wanted to touch upon, I can't remember exactly why I wanted to say this, so I apologize, but on the website that me and Catherine and Madison, part of our core unit, and a couple of the people, my younger brother, Jalay Knowles, and Catherine Albero, who I work with, we developed this website, and it's developing. It's in the process about education on racism. And Catherine is amazing. She's the resource queen. She has all the resources, and she posted the beginning parts on there. And then there's another piece, because we're talking about the programming, and we do have grants and stuff. And another thing is I've gotten people who contacted me who were like, Jalay, let's start some fundraisers. And I was like, you know what? I agree. Like if we can even generate our own type of money, we have extra money to put more into these programs if we need to, you know what I mean? So I can't remember, I apologize again. I can't remember what got that thought in my mind, but I'm literally like, he should be texting me soon at some point today or tomorrow, and we are going to put something together and hopefully updates on.
So that website is being developed right now. The website that you're talking about, it doesn't exist right now. I can't go and do www.
It does actually. Let me.
You know what? You don't have to do it right now, but just maybe after we finish here, anywhere that like maybe in the event page or in some of our the Facebook outlets where this was shared, and we can share that for folks as it's evolving. Okay, great. Thank you, Catherine. And I'm so glad you mentioned fundraising, because having the resources, the financial resources to be able to make some of these things happen is often one of the biggest hurdles. And it's one of the things that's really helpful with the Youth Bureau. And I'm not an expert, so I'll welcome if Karen wants to explain how that works. As Karen mentioned, it's quasi-public, the Youth Bureau, but it does have, whereas it has opportunities for funding to come from resources other than what a typical municipal government funding comes from. So the ideas that you're bringing to us now, what we're saying is help us figure out what programming is going to make the most sense and really address the needs of our community. And that's really what the village brings to the table, is this framework and this foundation. And that's really why we're saying you're the voices that we need to have in the Youth Bureau, helping us figure out what is going to address the challenges of our community in a really effective way. So I'm all for fundraising, and actually, when the Youth Bureau is formally in place, it's an avenue for that to be directed at. They can go directly into the kind of programming that we're talking about tonight. So yeah, so like I think we're all going in the same direction, and that communication is really important. So that when people they know what they want to put money to, and they know what the programming is, that it all is this collection of voices rather than parallel paths, not communicating with each other. I was looking for this email that I got recently because I wanted to ask about it while we're on this call, and people who are so very thoughtful about it. I'm a white woman. That's not really news, but I was invited by an organization I don't know to attend let me see if this is it. No, it's a Zoom meeting about the important role that white women in America have to play right now at dismantling racism. That's not the affinity group that, white women don't usually say we're an affinity group and we have a role to play as white women. I see that much more in communities of color. But it brings up a question that I want to ask, if anybody has any suggestions of how to speak to it. And I imagine Omar Lopez, you're somebody who would have an opinion on this. I don't know if Jalay, if it's something you've thought about. We've had a little bit of exchange about what role do affinity groups play in this. And I'm not going to get into, it can get a little bit tricky when we talk about village government, but as a larger conversation for our community. Does anybody want to speak to that? And I'm not suggesting white women is an affinity group that needs to sit around and chat with each other, but the idea was that we might be able to be effective allies.
I'll be happy to chime in there. So there is definitely space for, I'll start with white women specifically, but then talk about how folks who are in racial majority groups can be good allies in this work. So for white women specifically, in this country and in this community, we have seen that there are large numbers of white women specifically that are organized, and they are in groups such as Sending Moms and things like that, where they're not exclusively white women, of course. There are some men in those groups. There are women of different races, but there are just organizations of women, some of them a little bit more formal like that, some of them informal, where you just have a chat that's going on, or maybe on Signal, which is an app that you may have. There may be 15, 20, 30, 60 women on there. And that is an opportunity for you to do a few things. One is to get the word out about opportunities to participate in this work, whether it's through the Youth Bureau, some of the training we talked about, or anything else. Two is to talk about your own experience when it comes to this work and talk about why you care about it. because you as a white woman have access to spaces that I as a man of color do not. And that has a lot of strength. And so leveraging the credibility that you have within those groups to say, this is something that I care about is super powerful. And number three is checking people that look like you. So when, if I'm in a group of white women and they say something that is offensive, inappropriate, or something like that, and I were to say something, it lands a little bit differently if someone who looks like them checks them. And there's a lot of strength in that. And the reality is that's true across many lines of similarity and difference. And so when I'm with men, when we want to talk about strengthening women and feminism and stopping misogyny, you know who some of the best people to stop misogyny are? Men, right? So if I'm around other men and they're saying things that are inappropriate, I need to check men because I have that kind of position to be able to do so in a way that's authentic to me. So you take like our friend, fellow trustee here, Bob Fritchie, he's a firefighter. I don't have any relationships with firefighters. He does. If he's in a space where firefighters are saying something where there may be opportunity to check them, then Bob checking them is going to be so much more powerful than me checking them. So if you are in a space where you are with folks that are in some sort of majority, racial or majority or some other kind of group, where you can check folks like you, that's a super powerful thing to do. The last thing that I'll say, because I don't want to take up too much time here, is that there is also work to do independently. When it comes to exploring there's so much great, you're talking about Catherine as the queen of resources. Please talk to her about what are books you can be reading, videos you can be watching, the courses you can be taking. There's so much work to do, whether it's unpacking the white knapsack, that is one specific one that I know about, where if you want to learn about the way that your own white privilege impacts the way that you see the world in a way that can set aside some of the white guilt that causes you to maybe feel really uncomfortable with navigating this, then that is a great training to go to, but there's a lot to do. So there's independent work you can do, you can check your peers, and you can spread the word about the good work.
Thank you, Trustee Lopez. I'll extend that that same question more broadly to our young visitors, as far as what roles can people play no matter what their affinity group is? Do you have any suggestion for us of whether you're a young person or a person of color or a white person, is there anything that has been very clear to you or that you can advise people on? Because everybody right now is really paying attention and they want to be helpful. And they want to be helpful in the way that where they can be most helpful. Do you have any thoughts on that or get any feedback in your conversations?
I mean, one of the things that people have been coming up to both of us asking, or even Madison too, coming up after the events asking, like, how can we help? How can we support you? I want to assure people that everyone has a platform, no matter what. Everyone has a platform that needs to be utilized. People that are younger than I am, or younger than all of us, are very active on social media. They can utilize that platform. That is their platform. They utilize that. They can tell people, hey, I read this in relation to what's going on in our political climate right now. I think so-and-so and so-and-so should read it. They post it onto their Instagram stories. They post it onto their Twitter. They have 300 people at least who are also willing to read it. You have people my age who we go around and we talk about casually, like, oh, that's crazy what's going on in the world right now. You say, yeah, of course. People ask what they can do to help, looking at resources, looking at different places that they can donate, different things that they can read. Mr. Lopez, mentions the Invisible Knapsack. That is one idea and one sociological notion that has had so many people start a discussion afterwards. People don't like to talk, this is a scary word, but again, we're talking about starting uncomfortable conversations. The scary word is white supremacy. The invisible knapsack goes hand in hand with the white supremacy flower. The simple Google search, everyone can Google it, you read about it, it starts a bigger discussion, whether you agree or whether you disagree with it. It's okay to have either opinion. We need to utilize every single platform that we have. I'll reach out to Jalay. Jalay has all of her athletic friends, everyone that she has gone to school with in Connecticut. I have people that I've gone to school with in New York. That's two different networks that are coming together. all utilizing their own platforms. And I think that's really what we need to emphasize, is that everyone has a voice to lend. No matter how little you think your voice is, it's much bigger. It's much bigger than you're going to lead yourself to believe it is.
Also, to piggyback, like this is that true allyship right there. And also the platforms, like some people are comfortable with stepping on stage. Some people are more comfortable with writing it out. Some people are more comfortable with talking amongst a couple people. It doesn't matter what you're, like Catherine said, like your platform is your platform. You gotta use it, because we're trying to reiterate also that all voices are valuable, especially when you were putting that effort and that courage and that bravery to talk about something so serious and just uncomfortable for a lot of people. And what Mr. Lopez was saying before, at the events recently, at least in Ossining, I've seen so many white people there, and that has made a huge difference. Like no idea. I remember growing up, I know that teachers that looked like me, they were able to check me a certain way, and I was able to be more receptive than someone who didn't look like me. It's so different. And also a huge example to end and really dismantle racism. White people are true allies, and that's why I admit it, there was an us versus them mentality, right? And I was part of it. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna say that like it's us versus them, but realistically, we got to get together. And because we can build each other up, and our white allies are so important. And that's why I think Ossining sets the tone. We're using this platform. We are communicating with one another and really developing a true plan of action and unity moving forward.
Okay, we are now down to the last 20 minutes or so. And so I want to get through a couple more of these questions. And one of them really speaks to how we can continue this conversation. Somebody asked, speaking to, you kind of spoke to it a little bit just now, Jalay. Some people are comfortable coming and speaking on stage. Some people are comfortable and have the ability to sit through one of these sort of virtual conversations and ask a question. But oh shoot, I lost it. I think it was one of Meadows' question. If you have ideas or other input specific to the youth-driven efforts to dismantle racism, how can we communicate that in writing? And I guess I'm going to ask, maybe Karen. I don't know if there's a platform that we can create or that exists in village government that is specific to this. To whether the Youth Bureau or youth programming, other than, generally when something's going to the community, we say send it to the Board of Trustees or send it to the village manager. In this case, if it's specific to youth-driven efforts to dismantle racism, is there some place that you would recommend, Karen?
Certainly, I think we don't have a platform specifically for that. I think that anybody, email me, get me information. I think this discussion, I'm hoping broadens so that we can have a network, and again, different organizations working collectively around this and focusing in based on their resources and their expertise and their reach to different groups and different populations in the community. So I see this as something that the village needs to be responsive about in its hiring practices, in what it's doing in all its programming and its inclusiveness and in just every aspect of what it does. There's always room to do greater cultural competency. So again, anybody who wants to email me directly, my contact information's on the website, please do that. And then I'm hoping that this evolves. One of the silver linings of the pandemic is the ability that we've had to network with the school district and other organizations in a way that we hadn't before. So it's becoming a little bit more fluid, a lot less siloed. And this would be one area in particular where we could get together on this and share information. Our ability to have real systemic change, drive that, would be so much greater. So I hope it evolves to that as well.
So Jalay and Catherine, people want to reach out to you specifically, directly. So is your website a way that people can connect with you?
Yes. Oh, sorry, Catherine, you want to speak on that one?
Oh no, I was just gonna say, we have an email. It's austiningsvoice@gmail.com. For any questions or any resources that you need, feel free to reach out to us that way. And then Jalay, you could talk about the website if you would like.
Yes, I am. So the website, hopefully what the goal is, and we got some tech people behind us to help us as well, that we can almost develop like almost an online platform where our email is definitely an online platform. We are like, email us with whatever feelings, emotions, plans, whatever you need, we are here to listen. For the website, the goal is to have maybe have some guiding questions for people, almost like how we are in the physical forums. And again, like, we are still in the middle of a pandemic, so like we had a lot of people, and it's been amazing. So we're just trying to be a little diligent about our event planning as well. But just something to continue the conversation. And also what we touched on before, different platforms, some people might be more comfortable and with providing an anonymous email or an anonymous survey question, but they could have some serious ideas that can keep this momentum going. So that's kind of what the website is going to hopefully look like. And again, we have some tech people that are going to help us, because I'm 22, but I'm not as tech savvy as you would maybe assume. But we are.
Okay. So
Hey,
I want to.
Victoria?
Yes.
Can you hear
Oh,
me?
Rika, we can hear you. Yes, please go ahead.
I raised my hand politely a while ago, but I can't tell if
Yes,
you
I
can
know. I
see
wasn't sure if
anything
that
or
was
not.
left over. Go ahead, please.
No. I just, what I said earlier is what I want to say now, which is I really tuned into this Zoom conference. And for those of you that know me, I do not lack opinions about many, many issues, but I've been quiet, not only because my connection here isn't so great, but actually what I want to say is I really want to hear what people have to say, listen to different points of view. I have been virtually meeting with a number of constituents in the past few days. We'll do more so tomorrow and the day after to really understand different points of view. And I think Jalay and Kath, what you've done is really made that possible for me personally, for me as a person who also has a position as a trustee in the village. So I'm very grateful for you to have opened that door and that opportunity and that platform. And I don't want my silence on this particular meeting to be anything but my intention to listen very loudly to what's being said. So I appreciate the time everybody has put in, and I see this just as the door being open to many conversations to come and actual action being taken, and with some action plans, which I think is something that you spoke about a number of times. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Rika. It's good to hear your voice. Welcome. I'm glad we were able to actually connect in an audible way. There's one more question that really opens up a really big conversation, and I want to get to it, that Diana Lemon had, but I also see that Dana Levenberg posted here something that we should all be aware of. And it speaks to the fact that there are so many people trying to, that have this very similar goal. And it's fine for us to work on parallel paths. It's even better if we're communicating well on that. And Jalay, this is something you know about, which is the Community Equity Task Force that the Village, Town, and stakeholder groups, including young and older voices alike, have started. So please feel free to email ideas to D. Levenberg at townofaustining.com. She's coordinating that Community Equity Task Force, and she wants to thank the police, Jalay, the school district, the library, the NAACP, local residents, and others for coming together for this group. So thank you for chiming in with that, Dana, Supervisor Levenberg. And so the big question that Diana Lemon posed is actually related to the question that an anonymous person posed as well, which is what about taking a portion of the $10 million, roughly, I'm not sure that that's the exact number, of the law enforcement budget currently used from the village to fund the Youth Bureau. And that kind of play is a similar theme to the when we talked about the affinity groups, white people in power, but in this case, it's just people in power. Our board is certainly not all white. Could use their platform to oversee and make sure the policies and procedures are anti-racist. And something that we didn't talk about today, but that's being talked about a lot, is the concept of defunding the police, which is not actually defunding the police, but making use of public resources. And I guess, Trustee Lopez, you probably touched on this more than anybody in talking about being able, that we ask so much of our police now that is beyond traditional law enforcement training. We ask them to be emergency responders for many things, including mental health and other social services needs that are really wraparound services that is still a little bit siloed and kind of get put onto the police department. So that's the question of, what was it? I guess it was during the President Obama's program last week, and somebody used the phrase, a budget is a moral document. And that's an important phrase for us to have in mind as we go into budget season again this year. And the questions about police funding versus youth bureau funding versus so many other important priorities we have in our community. How are they represented by the tax dollars and how we spent those? Does anybody want to speak to this general concern that has been raised, and it's been raised on a national level, but does anybody want to speak to it here on a local level?
I'd be happy to jump in to just say a few words on this. So this is a really complex issue, and one that is made complex for a number of reasons. So one of the reasons it's complex is because police funding is something that is done at the local level. And so unlike funding for, let's say, healthcare, which is done at other levels, for example, here in Austin, we don't have a Department of Health. There's a county Department of Health. And so if we wanted to take money from the police and put it into health, well, then they wouldn't exactly work because they function at different levels. Moreover, it's complex because you have some cities like Minneapolis, New York City, or smaller cities like Camden, New Jersey, that have had high amounts of crime. They've had a lot of issues with police and have had to really look at what are ways to think very differently about this. And so in 2017, Camden actually dissolved their police department and offered police officers the opportunity to reapply for their jobs, but those jobs were going to be looking different than they did. And the feedback since then, the data is a little bit inconclusive. It's better in some ways, not in others. But what Camden has attempted to do in thinking differently about the way that law enforcement is organized in their community is a lot of what the defund the police movement is about. And because it's a little bit of a Rorschach test, as you were saying, Mayor Gearity, it can mean different things. For some people, it means abolish the police. For others, it means reducing the funding from the police and putting it into social services. For us here in Ossining, a community where we have not had high numbers of police complaints due to police violence in the same way that you have had, for example, in New York City or in Minneapolis, a community where the police have had a pretty strong track record of doing things like wearing body cameras and doing outreach to the community to diversify their ranks, and whatever other kinds of reforms that you're seeing around the country, we're actually seeing a lot of those already in place in Ossining. So we're starting from a good place. At the same time, that doesn't mean that we can't think critically about the question, is the way that we are organizing our law enforcement the best way to do that? And I think that having those kind of conversations are super important to the question of whether it makes sense to reducing the police budget in order to go to the youth bureau. I think that's a conversation that we'll have to have in detail. Part of the issue is that there are most of the money for not just the police, but also for many other pieces of government go to people. So if we reduce the salaries, if we reduce the budgets in the police, what we were doing is reducing the number of police. And that may be ultimately what we want to do, but we need to ensure that that's the conversation that we're trying to have. It's not just cutting the funding in an abstract way, putting it into Youth Bureau in an abstract way, and then hoping that things work out. Like, there will be ramifications if we reduce the budget to one department and put it in another.
That's
So
okay.
I want to move forward in a thoughtful way. And ensure that we are attempting to address the reasons that we're having these conversations, of ensuring that police are being set up for success, and we're not asking them to be homeless outreach and mediators and social workers and everything else. And at the same time, we're providing resources for the community. The last thing that I'll say is that for very young people, they learn from a young age that if you want to reach out for help, what do? You call 911. And when you call 911, you basically get a few options. You get fire, police, and ambulance. And to be able to add to that, to have folks come to address the issue that don't have weapons on them, I could have a lot of value. At the same time, we live in a country where there are more guns than people. And so you also want to ensure that when we do have a dangerous situation, that we're able to face that in a way that ensures safety for everyone. So I said a lot because it is a complex issue, but I think it's a good starting point for the conversation.
Thanks for that. And
If I could just add to that,
please.
I'm gonna.
Go ahead.
Okay, Victoria.
We hear you.
I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead.
I'm gonna make it really short and sweet. Yeah. Diana Lemon, is she the person that asked this? Yes. Okay. So I think when we do the budgets this year, last year we did the budgets. I think we did a yeoman's job of looking, and we always do, and in this community, of looking at every detail. And just getting the Youth Bureau for us, I think, was a big deal. It's been 2 decades since any community in Westchester County has put a Youth Bureau together. So I thought that was a great move, big supporter, but to put it bluntly, we need to look at the budgets this year, I think, through a wider lens of all the budgets and how they might affect the topic we're discussing. And we're discussing a number of complex topics. But I think it is a good idea, actually, and taking from here and there.
You're breaking up a little bit, Rika.
Look at them and say, okay, how much of this goes where? And all right, then I'm gonna, I'll take that as a hint that I probably should stop. And that's okay.
Not for me, it's from the Wi-Fi service.
No, I know, I'm pretty far away. I know, doing the best. I'm trying to find the right spot to stand and talk, but I think that you probably got most of it.
Yes.
If not,
yes.
I'll listen to the recording at some point and repeat it at another opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. We're coming to the end of our time, and I want to be able to hear from Jalay and Catherine to have them sort of wrap us out. So I'm going to bring us to next steps, and I hear a couple of the next steps for us in village government is to reach out to Chief Sylvester and our friends in the police department to talk about a conversation that they can have that's more focused on police practices and training. There's also some conversations that the village trustees and I have started having about our role in oversight and in working with the Civilian Police Complaint Review Board, as well as working with the police department and clarifying where we are with that for the community. And then there are some specific questions. People want to know, how can they be involved with the Youth Bureau when we get to that point? And when jobs are posted and what the titles are going to be and what the salaries and job descriptions are going to be. So when all of that is available for folks, I think we're going to be reaching out to the folks here who are involved and all of our community partners to push out that information, because there are so many people, as we can see, who care deeply about this and very much want to be involved. And so with that, I will borrow a question here from Ginny. What do you see as the next steps for the conversation you've been leading? And are there ways the community can support you, either through government or outside of government? So Jalay and Catherine, answer that however you will.
So as of right now, our core unit of change is what we like to call it. We are meeting tomorrow to discuss our next event. And what we are realizing is that we need to dig deep. We need to dig deep and figure out what questions we want, what type of guiding questions we want to ask the public. And I believe that maybe this next one could be more community-based, like as a community, what can we do? I mean, I guess that's an open-ended question right there, but hopefully we will get more into it. I can say for myself at least, actually, no, me and Catherine, we both work in the school district, and I can say that they are listening, and they are receptive of what is being told, and they know that the education is a key portion. And as a community, I think at least for me, for what I can say for myself, I just need you guys to continue to talk, continue to use to start and continue the conversation, and do some research. Like we're trying to build up the website to make it just friendly for everyone, but go in depth, go research, go gain some knowledge, because knowledge really is power. If you were able to it's okay to not know, but what you know, it's not okay to ignore. And like and what we're trying to do is create a safe, non-judgmental platform. Like this Ossining Voices email, like ask whatever questions you want, whatever suggestions you might have, because we're young, and we know, like, we know some stuff, but we don't know everything. We need the experience, we need the perspectives of other people. So as of right now, we are planning another event, and that hopefully more information can be released tomorrow evening. Catherine, anything else?
No, I mean, just like Jalay said, we're going to continue to bring everybody together and make sure that everybody's concerns, questions, everything is heard. Yeah, I'm trying to, the next steps obviously are going to be, how can we take all of these great ideas, all of these great questions, and funnel it into the education system itself, especially here in Ossining.
Thank you, Catherine. Thank you, Jalay. And I just want to clarify, the email that you gave us was ossiningsvoices@gmail.com. Is that right?
Ossiningsvoice@gmail.com. No apostrophe.
Yeah, no
Okay.
apostrophe.
Ossiningsvoice@gmail.com. Okay, so I had it backwards. All right, that was one of the questions on our Q&A. And Bob, go ahead, Bob.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to apologize for being late. I had another commitment. Jalay, Catherine, I can express how nice it is to see you guys step up to the plate and take this on your shoulders. It's great. I'm probably one of the only people on this call right now that lived through the racial tensions in the 70s here in Ossining. And we didn't have this kind of stuff back then. You know, you toughed it out and everything settled down. But this is great. I think you've got a great foundation started here. Along with my colleagues, I agree with what Manny said, what Omar says. I can't remember everything Omar says, but I agree with it. As far as the fire department, we're a family. Black, red, blue, white, whatever color we are. It's a different structure. It's hard to put our finger on it, but you know, I'm proud to be from Ossining. I'm proud to be a part of the department. I'm proud of you guys for what you've done, and I support you. I support the Youth Foundation, just like all of my colleagues. And I just wanted to get that in there before we wrapped up. I am here, and again, like Rika, I am listening loudly. You guys are great, and you need anything, you know how to get a hold of me. That's all I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Fritchie. It's been great having everyone involved tonight, and I'm particularly grateful that we were able to lift up the voices of a couple of our really impressive young leaders who are inspiring so many important conversations to happen in our community. We are grateful to have you as partners in the Village's efforts on the youth programming front, and we are grateful to be in a community that has so many tremendous partners in the schools and in all of our community organizations. I don't think people in Ossining fully understand what a big deal that is, and what an anomaly we are to have such tremendous relationships between government and private organizations in the school district. Thank you, everybody, for being here with us and for inspiring us and for helping us figure out where we go from here. Is there anything else that I'm forgetting or that needs to be said as we close up this meeting this evening?
Just thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Jalay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Jalay, Catherine, all of my colleagues in village government. I need to, we're actually, since this is a public meeting, the trustees and I are taking advantage of it to have a brief executive session. So I need a motion to go into executive session for matters of personnel related to specific persons.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. So with that, we say thank you
Delay's also in
to
favor.
everyone who was here this evening, and we will be in touch. We will put out some of the information as soon as it is available, and we look forward to continuing this conversation about dismantling racism with youth-led and guided conversations. Be well.